A very good evening and welcome to Granada Reports.
Yeah, thanks for joining us. Here's what's coming up on the programme tonight.
A great footballer, an even better father. As they prepare for his funeral, we join the family of Joe Thompson, who died last month after years of living with cancer.
He was the best dad, always positive, like he was just fun to be around, like you would always want to be around him because he's just so fun and so kind.
Changing the law to, no, you don't get a choice. You have to go up.
The government commits to a new law to ensure criminals and killers appear to be sentenced after a high-profile campaign by the mum of Olivia Pratt-Corbell.
The two friends from Cheshire with vivid memories of VE Day and the street parties that followed, 80 years on.
Messages of support for Crosby's own cardinal from children at his former school as Vincent Nichols enters conclave in Rome to elect the next pope.
It's the first day of the season at Chester Racecourse. Join me a bit later in the programme for a look behind the scenes at how they bring it all together.
And the hawthorn is in blossom, the mackerel skies, it must be May. Temperatures on the up this week. I've got all the details in the forecast.
Well, first tonight, he was the best dad who puts other people first. The moving tribute to the late footballer Joe Thompson from his 12-year-old daughter, Lula.
Joe died last month at the age of 36 after being diagnosed with cancer for a third time. He was a legend at his former club, Rochdale, and respected right across the sporting community for the way in which he faced adversity and, of course, for his fundraising. Now, Joe's wife, Chantal, has issued an open invitation to his supporters to attend his funeral next week. Chantal and Lula have been speaking to our sports correspondent, Mike Call.
He was the best dad, always positive, like he was just fun to be around, like you would always want to be around him because he's just so fun and so kind.
12-year-old Lula Thompson pays tribute to her dad. Growing up, she watched him fight cancer 3 times, yet it's the happy memories and inspirational moments that shine through in the days following his death.
He's always been about helping people all the time, no matter what he's going through. He just loved to help people, and I think that's where I want to try and follow those footsteps.
His heart was just humongous. He was thoughtful, passionate.
Funny,
yeah. Loving. He just lit up the room whenever he would come in.
He lit up the football pitch too. A career which started at Manchester United ended at Rochdale, where in 2018, after twice beating Hodgkin lymphoma, Joe scored the goal which kept the club in the Football League, earning him legendary status.
He used to take me in the changing rooms a lot. They stank a lot of sweat. And I used to be like, Dad, you stink. Why does everyone stink in here? But it was so fun, you know. When Dad scored his special goal and he brought me into the changing room and everyone was screaming, it was just moments. And when I saw him happy, it made me happy and I wanted to celebrate with him.
It was 12 months ago that Joe revealed his 3rd cancer diagnosis. This time, it had spread to his lungs. He continued to fundraise, heading straight from a chemotherapy session to a charity football match and taking on a 21-mile walk with friends and fans.
I've been diagnosed with cancer for the 3rd time. There's no getting away from that, and you understand the severity of that, but for me, there's a bigger vision and a bigger picture than me.
Obviously, he had his times where it was hard and it was a struggle for him, but he still was just full of positivity, even to the very last day, you know. Yeah. He was still
making us laugh.
Lula, you believe that your dad is still around you, don't you? Tell me about that.
Yeah.
You think he's even been sending you some little signs and signals, hasn't he?
Yeah, 4 days after he had passed away, and we just went on a walk. There was like a little loop around our house. I said, Dad, can you show me some signs? And as soon as I said signs, there was about 30 feathers on a trail leading to my family. Literally all just little white ones, but yeah, I was just in shock. I just felt like it wasn't a coincidence at all. He's watching me all the time, he's watching me dance, he's watching me do all this stuff, he's watching me and my big achievements, and he's still always going to be here with me. but it's just a little bit different, if that makes sense.
Chantel, Lula and 2-year-old Athena are now preparing for Joe's funeral next week, and it's an open invitation.
We'd spoke about this prior to him passing, and he just said, you know, I want anyone who feels that I've impacted them in any way. You know, I don't want it to be a closed funeral where people don't feel that they can come and pay their respects. And I think a little bit of his ego would love to see a lot of people.
Yeah.
One last roar from the crowd, yeah?
Absolutely.
The service will take place on Monday at 11 a.m. at St Mark's Church in Worsley, Salford. A hero send-off for a man whose legacy will almost certainly live on through his inspirational young family. Mike Hall, ITV News.
Yeah, and I'm sure his legacy will definitely live on through his beautiful girls. Thanks so much.
Really lovely tribute.
Yeah, and Lula for speaking to us. Well, next tonight, the increasing anger over planned cuts to personal independence payments, or PIP as they're more commonly known.
Yeah, today protesters descended on a ticket-only consultation event organised by the Department for Work and Pensions in Manchester.
Well, the government's own impact assessment has already predicted that the cuts announced in the Disability Benefits Green Paper would drive at least 300,000 people into poverty. Elaine Wilcox has the story.
When we're under attack, disabled people fight back! Don't attack our benefits! Cut back! Fight back! Cut back!
They wanted their voices heard in a public consultation on proposed cuts to benefits, but the doors were closed to a group of disabled people who couldn't get a ticket. Dennis Queen, a musician who relies on personal independent payments, says the government isn't listening.
The question is, can any of you afford to lose a third of your income? The answer to which is no. They don't need to come around the country having meetings asking anyone, can you afford to lose a big chunk of your income? No one's going to say yes to that. They're just asking like what sort of knife they can use, or are they going to use a guillotine?
When they tried to get into the public meeting at a city centre hotel, they were refused and the police were called. We understand just 20 tickets were available for this public consultation, and dozens of disabled people were turned away. Amnesty International is here and say this is a violation of people's rights.
Look at what's happening today. They're asking to be let in to have a say, and they're being refused entry. You know, this isn't okay. And we've written to the Secretary of State alongside them saying exactly that.
Ministers want to save £5 billion and pledge to improve welfare support.
When it relates to sickness benefits for universal credit and PIP, where almost 1 in 10 people are receiving it, we've got to make sure that is going to the people who really need it and deserve it more. So it is difficult, but we've got to look at how that system is working, because it's not sustainable at the minute in terms of cost or public support for what we have inherited.
When I hear the government has had to make tough decisions, however, disabled people are finding these tough decisions, in fact, very dangerous for us and giving us great distress through no fault of our own.
The DWP head honcho in there saying I'll feed this back to the minister. I think that's a downright lie. The DWP keeps losing court case after court case. It lost a court case recently over the work capability assessment, saying that its actions were illegal.
So that's not even a real consultation. It's just a sham, really.
And to be left outside of this consultation?
Well, it just shows you what contempt they have for us.
Our activists are near the door to where the consultation is happening, and they're shouting, let us in.
They didn't get into the meeting, but they still got their views across loud and clear. Elaine Wilcox, ITV News, Manchester.
Yeah, clearly some very angry people there. Let's cross the line now to our political correspondent, Leisha McNally. And Leisha, still real anger over cuts for the government to deal with.
Undoubtedly so, and not just anger on the streets of Manchester, but right here at the heart of government too. Earlier today, MPs held a Westminster Hall debate looking at PIP and the impact it will have on disabled people. It was unusually well attended, and there were 2 Labour North West MPs who spoke directly to government, urging them to rethink this change. Now, of course, for every voice willing to say that in public, many more are raising concerns in private. So there is some political division on this, but what we've heard today so far suggests the government is holding firm.
The current system produces poor employment outcomes, high economic inactivity, low living standards, high cost to the taxpayer. It needs to change. We want a more proactive, pro-work system that supports people better and supports the economy as well.
Well, Alicia, one thing the government are going to act upon is a crackdown, isn't it, on criminals refusing to appear for sentencing.
Yeah, that's right. This is the result of a tireless campaign by the family of a little girl from Liverpool. Olivia Pratt-Corbell was just 9 years old when she was shot dead on her own doorstep. The man who murdered her had been chasing a drug dealer who forced his way into her home. And despite taking the life of an innocent child and putting her family through all the agonies of her murder trial, Thomas Cashman refused to come to court to hear his sentence. And ever since then, Olivia's family have been trying to change the law to make criminals face their victims' families. Now today that campaign took a big step forward as the Victims in Courts bill was laid before Parliament. If it passes, it means that judges will not only be able to add 2 years onto criminal sentences if they refuse to come to court, they'll be also able to restrict some of their privileges while they're in prison.
Our loved ones are never going to have them pleasures in life.
So why should they?
We have to go to a cemetery to see our loved one and lay flowers. They still get to cuddle theirs. So this has to be done right. There's no more hanging around. We're very patient, but
The whole top and bottom of it is changing the law to no, you don't get a choice. You have to go up. It's that simple.
Now, you saw Cheryl and Antonia meeting the Prime Minister there, but they were also promised this change in the law by the previous government, and that's why they say they won't be able to properly celebrate until the bill is safely through Parliament, signed, sealed and delivered. What they would love would be for that to happen by the middle of June, on time to mark what should have been Olivia's 12th birthday.
Alicia, thank you very much.
Well, some other news today, and a bomb disposal expert from the Isle of Man has died while volunteering in Ukraine. Chris Garrett from Peel had dedicated years to clearing landmines in the war-torn country and stepped up to help after the Russian invasion in 2022. His charity says they are devastated by the news and are working to uncover further details surrounding the incident.
An inspection has found that police forces across the country missed warning signs that led to an outbreak of riots after the Southport stabbings last summer. The report from former Merseyside Chief Constable Andy Cook praised officers for their immense bravery and personal sacrifice, but found that forces need to improve their information gathering so tensions can be addressed as soon as possible.
The community sentiment wasn't being picked up. The police had actually judged that the possibility of disorder on such a scale was a low risk, which means that chiefs and others weren't necessarily prepared for it when it happened.
Well, next tonight, and we continue our coverage to mark the 80th anniversary of the end of World War II in Europe, VE Day on Thursday.
Well, last night we heard from 101-year-old D-Day veteran Peter Belcher, but tonight we feature those who grew up in the region during the war.
Feed was rationed and there was the ever-present threat of homes being bombed. No wonder May the 8th, 1945 was a day to celebrate, as Paul Crone now reports.
We shall fight on the beaches, we shall fight on the landing grounds, we shall fight in the fields and in the streets, we shall fight in the hills, we shall never surrender.
The words of Prime Minister Winston Churchill that inspired the nation through the darkest of times.
When the Nazis made their ferocious aerial attack on Manchester, they adopted the now familiar tactics of flare dropping followed by incendiary bombs.
And living through the war on the home front were Margaret Moseley and Beryl Freeman. Now enjoying the sunshine in Marple, Cheshire, the two were just children when the Second World War in Europe ended on May the 8th, 1945. Here's Beryl looking less than impressed at a street party on VE Day, and Margaret sporting a natty little chicken outfit in the middle of the picture.
My mother was in the kitchen and the radio was on. It was in the afternoon and I can remember her rushing in. It was when Churchill was doing his announcement, rushing in and saying, "Yes, it's really over and we can have our party." And we had the street party.
10-year-old Beryl went big and joined the crowds at Buckingham Palace as the nation celebrated the defeat of Nazi Germany.
I went with my sister, but I was too small to see anything. There were millions of people, and although we had a mirror on a stick, I was still too small. All I was getting were the older people.
In Manchester, there were similar scenes of joy as thousands gathered to salute the victory of the Allied forces. And there were street parties locally too, as the North West looked forward to a new start after 6 years of war.
Life wasn't normal. I mean, we walked to school and not realising, you know, we could have been killed on the way, or we could have got home and the house wasn't there. Things I think about now.
There were thousands and thousands of street parties held all across the country on May the 8th, 1945. After 6 years of hardship, disruption and personal loss, people were determined to celebrate that the war in Europe had finally ended. A war that affected many at home, not least in the Lancashire village of Freckleton, when an American bomber crashed into a school in August 1944, killing 38 children. And our VE Day veterans have their own thoughts on why it's important we don't forget May the 8th, 1945.
It annoys me a bit that they don't appreciate what they've got today because of what we went through, and the veterans, you know, I mean, the men that died, young men, very young men, it's very sad.
I think children these days probably have it a bit too easy with everything and the phones and the television and everything's put in front of them.
Linda Varley, whose father Arthur was a Normandy veteran, works tirelessly to ensure future generations are aware of the sacrifices people made.
How many of our veterans said, don't ever let this happen again? We were there, we went, and we did what we were asked, but we don't want other generations to do it. Let them learn from what we found out.
And she treasures a letter her dad wrote describing how he felt when the war in Europe ended.
Billeted in a field under canvas outside a small village, name forgotten, somewhere near Hamburg.
80-year-old pictures capturing an important moment in history. Photos that will always be treasured. Paul Crone, ITV News.
Lest we forget, what a moment in history. And you can imagine like the euphoria that people must felt on that 8th of May 1945. Unparalleled, incredible stuff.
Bittersweet as well, I'm sure. Now, eyes of the world, eyes around the world are on Rome this evening as the Catholic Church begins the ancient process of selecting a new leader after the death of Pope Francis.
One man currently inside the Sistine Chapel making his vote is Cardinal Vincent Nichols from Crosby.
Yeah, he and 132 other cardinals from around the globe will be locked inside for conclave.
And pupils at his former primary school in Merseyside sent him messages of good luck and support. Anna Connor reports.
God sent to us the golden rule of love, and so we love one another like he loves us.
They've got plenty to sing about at Great Crosby Catholic Primary.
Oh, we gotta love like him.
Because former pupil, Archbishop of Westminster Vincent Nichols, seen here on a return visit to the school in 2012, is about to make history as one of the cardinals in the Sistine Chapel conclave, deciding who will be the successor of St. Peter, the new Pope.
That's a bit, that's heavy. That's, that is really important, both personally and recognising its importance in the life of the world.
So let's send your own prayer now up to God in heaven to help Cardinal Vincent Nichols, who sat here as a young boy in our school 70 years ago.
Cardinal Nichols, 3CL pray that the Holy Spirit guides you in your decision to elect the new Pope. Please, Lord, protect and guide your church during this time of transition.
So we wish you and the other cardinals
the very best of luck. As a former pupil at our school, we wish Cardinal Vincent Nichols the very best of luck.
It is really inspirational that you are involved with this decision, knowing that you went to my school.
Good luck, Cardinal Nichols.
And I understand that you have family links in some ways.
Well, yeah, not direct family links, just my Uncle Frank, so my mum tells me, went to school with Cardinal Nichols, and he went to his primary school and his secondary school, so he knows him well, and my mum would say they know, oh yes, Vinny, Uncle Frank went to school with him. So he's very well known in the parish. There's a lot of people that know him, and he's a lovely man, and everybody speaks very highly of him.
The parish priest here knew the Archbishop and knows Crosby's connection with his family goes even further back.
Cardinal Nichols' mother was Miss Russell in those days, and before the new school was built, they used our parish hall as an overflow because some older parishioners remember being at school there. So there's been a connection with Crosby for some time.
In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen.
So they may be separated by miles and decades, but the Archbishop should know he's got backup. And an extra, unscripted message. Anne O'Connor, ITV News, Crosby.
Well, the weight of responsibility that Cardinal Nichols must be feeling right now will be incredibly intense. We're taking you live to St. Peter's Square in Rome as crowds gather and wait for the news of a new leader for the Catholic Church. And white smoke will signal the election of a new pope. There will, of course, be plenty more on that, on the conclave from Rome on the ITV Evening News at 6:30 with Mary. Now, it's the world's oldest racecourse, which keeps winning over new fans. We are ending tonight's programme in Chester.
Yeah, the city has been hosting its first race meeting of the season today as the Boodles May Festival comes to town.
In a moment, we'll get a look behind the scenes at how race days come together, and we meet those who keep the grounds looking picture perfect.
So let's cross live now to Chester to join Victoria Grimes. And Vicky, any winners for you today?
Well, any winners? I think we can all agree that the winner today is the weather. Look at this sunshine. It's been cracking the flags all day. Absolutely beautiful. The party is still going strong here. We've even got Joel on his saxman Joel, giving us a bit of Ibiza chill vibes. Absolutely brilliant, Joel. Thank you very much indeed. Now, this is the first day of the Boodles May Festival here at Chester Racing Company. They have been preparing for it all year long, and we were lucky enough to get a little behind-the-scenes look at how they pull it all together.
It's the biggest day of the year on the oldest racecourse in the world. Here in Chester, they've been welcoming racegoers for almost 500 years. Today marks the season's opening, truly the feather in their fascinator. In charge on race days is clerk of the course Eloise. This will be her first time officiating in Chester.
And you were the youngest known clerk in the world, Eloise.
I believe so, yes, that's what I've been led to believe.
At the grand old age of 32?
Yes.
That's incredible.
It is, yes. So on the first day we would be up and out on the track walking the course at about 6 a.m. to make sure that the going is correct, that we haven't had anything strange like any animals digging holes in the track or anything like that, that all the running rails are in position and that everything is ready to go on the surface and track level.
And from keeping the horses happy to making sure that racegoers are fed and watered, it takes more than 1,000 staff to get race ready, hundreds of them on the catering team.
Sean, I think it's fair to say that you need a fair bit of cake for this festival.
Yeah, a few.
And how long does it take you to prepare all of this?
About 4 days per cake.
4 days
for the
per
quantities.
Cake? Sean, I think you're my new favourite person here.
Yeah.
And what better to go with afternoon tea than truckloads of champagne? This marks the first day of racing, with many more events scheduled until September.
Well, those cakes were just as good as they looked, and Sean is a legend. 4,000 of those, each of those incredible. And from one legend to another, I bumped into somebody before that you may well associate a bit more with football, but it turns out he's very into his racing as well.
Well, obviously I'm local. I was born in Chester. I've lived here all my life, apart from when I was obviously in my football career, living in Madrid or Newcastle or whatever. But it's always been home. It's always been our local. We're so blessed to have one of the best tracks in the world, I believe. The best days out, right on our doorstep. I'm biased because I'm a local lad.
Horse racing or football?
That's an awful question.
I know,
Or a
I know.
nasty question, I should
That's
say.
a nasty question. I know,
Listen,
I'm sorry.
football's my life, obviously. It's always been my life. But I put my heart and soul and finance and everything into building Manor House Stables. As I say, we started very small, buying an old arable farm, and now we're training 130 horses for owners all over the world. So the business has grown. And I bounce out of bed at 6 every morning to go to watch the gallops and everything else. So, yeah, I mean, nowadays the racing game and the business is my life.
Is this one of yours in this race now, then?
It's not. No, I wouldn't be doing this interview if we had a.
Well, if you get a big win today, will you come and buy us all Granada Reports round of drinks?
I will. How many people are there?
Oh, about 50 of us, I think.
50. Okay. Diet Cokes all round.
Oh, well, Michael, if you're watching, you haven't brought us those Diet Cokes yet, so we're still here if you are around. You can watch all of that piece on ITVX. We'll have a full report about how they put the races here today. And we're joined now by Louise, who's the CEO of Chester Race Company. Louise, how's it gone today?
It's gone absolutely brilliantly. We've had brilliant weather. We've had over 7,000 people here, and that will double tomorrow and get even bigger a crowd on Friday. I've had so much positive feedback from owners, trainers, guests. It's just, I've got smiley people. So yeah, it couldn't have gone better.
Well, Louise, it's brilliant. It's obviously been a great day, but you look absolutely shattered. Are you going to be all right for the next 2 days?
Absolutely. We're well used to it. I'll go home, refresh, and that smile will be on tomorrow, as it will be for the rest of the team. We're ready to get that track, get the site absolutely pristine for tomorrow and for Friday, each night, turning it around and getting that smile back on our faces to greet our guests, to have a great time here.
Well, they've all had an amazing time today, Louise. Thank you so much. As I say, that piece is on ITVX. You can see all about how they bring days like this together at ITVX.
Vicky, thank you.
Yeah, we're waiting for those drinks, Michael. Time now for the weather. Here's Joe.
Why do I need a shower? I've been out in the rain.
The faster you go, the sooner you'll be out. You'll save water too.
United Utilities sponsors ITV Granada Weather.
Thank you. A very good evening to you. High pressure continues to dominate our weather this week. It's been a very dry spring so far, and there's no real rain in the forecast over the next few days. Warming up into the weekend, breaking down a little during Sunday as an area of low pressure nudges up from the south. But other than that, it continues to be dry and settled. And we can see those fairly warm hues as that air being pulled up from the continent boosts temperatures into the weekend. Low pressure approaches, however, we'll see a little bit of a breakdown during Sunday in the form of some showery rain. Back to this evening and overnight's details. Here in the northwest, a quiet night to come, a few shallow pockets of mist, and gardeners and growers will be pleased to note we're away from frost, even in rural spots, probably not much below 4 or 5 degrees tonight. Dry with very light winds, towns and cities at around 8 or 9 before tomorrow morning. On to tomorrow. First of all, the sun will be rising at 5:22, setting at 8:53 tomorrow evening. For most of us tomorrow, it'll start dry with very light winds, bits and pieces of cloud around, but sunshine begins to get out through the middle part of the morning. And in the afternoon, it's fine, settled, good sunny spells, and where the sun does get out, UV levels will be rising to high through the afternoon. Temperatures are doing well, above average for the time of year, 17 Celsius tomorrow. Winds continue to be very light. It's a quiet night tomorrow night. And looking ahead to Friday, barely a cloud in the sky to end the working week, feeling warm, and it'll be sunny. More cloud into the weekend, but feeling very warm. A breakdown with some showers later on Sunday. Bye-bye.
United Utilities sponsors ITV Granada Weather.
That's it from us. Do join us tomorrow for a special programme to mark the E-Day.
Yeah, from all of us here, good night and thanks for watching.
Bye-bye.